Welcome to Skin and Soul. I'm Gwenm Carsley, a transformational body, sex, and soul coach, and I'm inviting you on a bold, unfiltered journey into the heart of our humanity through the lens of eros. This is where we strip away the shame, dive into the unspoken, and embrace the wild, raw truth of our desires. Together, we'll crack open the taboo, uncover our deepest intimacies, and awaken the pulse of our sexual essence. Because real transformation, it's messy, it's thrilling, and it's oh so delicious. Buckle up, loves. Skin and Soul Beyond the Pale starts in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Hi, I'm Gwenm. I'm your host on Skin and Soul on Transformation Talk Radio. And I am also a body, sex, and soul coach and the creator of Lubology. And today's episode is when desire, can't even remember my own title, but when desire outlives the body. And this is a very personal topic for me. A couple of months ago, I did my father's eulogy, and today I'm honoring my mother. Not that she has passed on, but she is in transition as her own body is declining. So I am going to try to do this in one breath, and I'm going to ask you to breathe with me. I might take a breath if I run out of air and go to commercial, but I'm going to try and stay here. So I am currently recording this from Berlin, living in my new temporary home, a city that my mother grew up in and lived in and has been away from for decades and has always longed and dreamed to come back. So I brought her back to her home city of Berlin with the crazy, wild idea that I was doing something good, that it might bring her some peace or a dream left unlived or some kind of closure. But instead, I find myself ricocheting from one government office to another, from hotel rooms. There's been a lot of tears, laughter, deep memories have surfaced. And everything that I have ever loved, hated, been frustrated around with my mother has echoed on this trip. So this isn't a clean story or a clean teaching moment. It's about the chaos of being human, which really is the fundamental heart and soul of Skin and Soul. So today, we're talking about the ache of watching the body in decline, because the truth is that we are all going to get there one day, while something in us still stirs, still hungers, still desires, still, whether you want to call it life force, but that it refuses to die. So let's begin. I'm going to bring in some pieces that I've been writing called grief diaries, as well as some of my mother's own writing, so to share with you. So it's living is not just about smelling the roses. It's about taking that deep inhale, suspending the moment, noticing how long before the moment moves on to the next thing. Can you not just hear, but listen? Attune to your body, listen to your heart and your soul's desires. And when you seek pleasure, can you go beyond the quick gratification? Can you stretch past the contact of skin and feel into the air itself? The molecules that vibrate between you and another before your skins ever get to touch each other. Can you notice the puppet strings in your mind pulling you where it wants you to go, avoiding what it wants you to avoid? And I say this because regret, true regret, hits hard in the places where avoidance has lived the longest. So I'm going to introduce you to my mother, the storm. It has taken me a very long time to see the beauty, the magnificence of all of my mother. And I mean all of her, in her magic, in her awfulness, her unacceptable behaviors, and also in the moments that particularly now are opening and melting my heart more than ever. My mother has always been a storm. Magnetic and repellent, beautiful and terrible. My mother partied and danced her nights away. She had eyes that could slay, she still does, and she drank to numb. She took pills to quiet the panic within her and to soothe her chronic depression. She used creams and rituals to tend to her body to preserve her temple. She was a dancer and a figure skater and very deeply connected to her body in one way, and yet she couldn't stay there because she felt too much, too intensely. So she is still like that, even now with dementia. Now at 83, almost 84, she is a storm that cannot be controlled. She has always reminded me of those untouchables, those icons like Princess Diana, Judy Garland, Marilyn Monroe, and not because of the couture and cameras, because my mother is quite modest, but because of the paradox, the radiance and the ruin of living under the same skin as women who were adored and devoured, often at the exact same time. Women who shimmered with impossible light, but were always shadowed by tragedy. Women who self-medicated to survive, who were adored and destroyed by the very intensity of their own essence. My mother belongs in that constellation. She lived and still lives for drama, for beauty, for love, and she carried herself like old Hollywood, glamour stitched in ache. And when I was young, I felt nothing but shame in her presence. She embarrassed me. She lived too big, too much, too messy. And I often felt like her behavior was my behavior, like her madness was stitched into my skin. Dementia brought out the exaggeration of her essence. So, in some ways, today, I see her more clearly than I ever have. I recognize her. You know, people often say when dementia hits or Alzheimer's hits that they don't recognize their loved one anymore. But me, I recognize her more than ever. It's as if everything she ever was is now completely exaggerated. Her drama, her flirtations, her cruelty, her tenderness, her despair, her humor, her mischief, and her melancholy. It's her. She's unfiltered, uncensored, and amplified. So I had thought my entire life that I had resented my mother, that I wanted to get away from my mother. And it was true. But the truth is, as I sit here in this chair witnessing her, that I'm really heartbroken, that I've always been heartbroken. Heartbroken at her losses, heartbroken at her unfulfilled desires, heartbroken that she has lived so much of her life with regret. My mother had never settled into partnership. Both my mother and my father hunted each other down in fits of jealous passion. They were repellent and magnetic at the same time. They couldn't live together, but they still crashed together. And their love was fire and gasoline, a theater of screaming and seduction, of longing and cruelty. And my father had charisma that women were drawn to. He had that masculine gravity, that innate power that drew hearts to him with loyalty. And my mother was one of them. My mother's heart never let him go. So even when he betrayed her, even when he abandoned her emotionally, her heart belonged to him. And she closed the door to other possibilities. She left whole decades of her life unlived, and she knows it, she speaks of it, and her regrets are lodged in her body like stone. She has always said that she should have done things differently, and yet she couldn't. She remained loyal to her heartbreak. So I want to take a moment to talk about inheritance, not in the legal sense, but in the bone sense. What the body remembers, what the blood repeats, what the nervous system keeps humming like an old song that you don't choose. My mother was a war baby. She came from World War II in Germany, and it stamped itself into her fascia, into the tiny places you can't stretch out in yoga. In scarcity, sirens, secrets, the way adults spoke in half sentences, and children learned to read the room like weather. She lived in constant anxiety, depression. She wore it like a winter coat she could never take off. And if I'm honest, I feel the echo of it in me. Not just in the stories that she tells now more than ever, but in the thrum of my own body, in my own skin, in an inherited shiver. So I don't need to prove it biochemically to know that it's real. My chest knows it. My jaw knows it. My breath knows it. She had told me once, almost as an apology, almost as a confession, that she remembered being a little girl and hearing her mother having sex. A child awake in the dark, her body flooding with things too big for a child to carry. Confusion, heat, deep shame, curiosity, fear. And she's never digested it. That little girl in her never did grow up, and she just learned how to put lipstick on to a wound and call it glamour. So when you grow up in survival, eros is not a playground. It becomes a tool, a shield, a currency, a distraction, a god. And my mother learned every dialect of that language. I think that's why I recognize her so intensely now, even in dementia. Her filters are gone. The raw feed is on. There is no performance, no good girl, no keeping it tidy for the neighbors. It's just uncut real. The hunger, the fury, the flirt, the ache, the self-sabotage, the longing for romance that she was taught that she never deserved. And she built a story that wanting too much makes you selfish. It makes you greedy. It makes you unlovable. And so she closed the doors. So she drank. And she reached for light, and then she smashed the lamp. And now here I am, her daughter, feeling my own body echo the same push, pull, come closer, get away, love me, don't love me, touch me, hold me, let me run. These stories repeat. They are her stories, her voice, her survival, her tenderness, and escape. And so I'd like to share with you some of her stories now because she wrote beautifully. I'm going to use a little bit of a German accent because this is how I hear her in my head. And not to mock her, but because this is how she lives and breathes for me. So there are 3 stories, and the first is survival. It was late fall, dull, just like my friend's mood and mine. Happy days in France seemed out of sight. We handed our passports to the East German soldier. His face revealed no emotion. He carried a machine gun over his young shoulders. It brought up instant fear in me. I remembered myself as a child, holding my mother's hand tightly at the Russian border, my heart beating fast, just like now. 16 years after the war ended, the country still bled. And at home, her mother wrote notes to grocers. Please help out for the sake of my children. I will pay on the 1st. And my mother, tippy toes at the counter, cheeks burned red as the shopkeeper made her wait, making sure that everyone heard the shame. This is the last time this month, you hear? But my mother, she would run home with food and humiliation, both heavy in the same bag. This is eros too. This is not sex. It's not perfume. The voltage is survival. The pulse that says, stay alive, stay alive. The next piece, and I just want to breathe with that for a moment, because our eros lives in all of us and in our entirety. It's not just what we think of an intimate sexual moment. It is in our survival. It is also in that blood pumping moment. This next piece is more around tenderness. And it's something that my mother wrote while she was watching my son. My son was very young at the time. He was probably only 8 years old. And I have to put out a shout out to him today because today is his 30th. I can hardly believe it. So here we are. And this is something that she wrote in devotion to him. If only I had wings and I could fly, I would cross waters and mountains to where I had left a part of me. How I missed those glorious days in the sun with you, my little grandson. And we sat close to the water. Let sand sift through our fingers, drawing circles. Majestic ships, pearl white, passed slow and steady. We followed the ship until it turned into a tiny dot where sky and water were one. The dream was gone, and we sat quietly for a while as I touched his small hand. Our catch of the day, how I cherish those days. This too is eros. I think that is probably one of the most tender pieces I have read of my mother. And you have to know this is not the mother I grew up with, not the mother I knew. But it is the grandmother that she was to my son. This is the eros of presence, the eros of being nowhere else, no drink in hand, no man to impress, no stage, no drama, just a woman and a child and a shoreline, and the perfection of nothing happening. So how many of us can bear that kind of intimacy? How many of us know how to sit still in and long enough to feel the molecules between our fingers and the sea? To sit in the unrushed inhalation. She makes me smile. The last piece of that I have of her is something that she wrote about being in New York in the 60s. New York, the Pierre Hotel, Fifth Avenue in snow, fur coat on the shoulders of a woman who learned to wear opulence like armor. And these are her words. Marvin and I arrived late in New York. The day before, he had told me he was still married. He bought me a beautiful fur coat. I left money on the table and I rushed to find my friend Corinna. I paraded down Fifth Avenue in chic boots and I felt like I belonged among Chanel boutiques. Over wine, he confessed. Over wine, I confessed that he had lied. But I gave up my job, my country, and what could I do? He says he will leave his wife soon, she says. She says that she is fine. She is really fine. And they order another carafe of wine and call it romance. And this is eros too. The glitter, the rush, the dangerous high of being chosen, and the slow, nauseous low of knowing you are not. These are three constellations: survival, tenderness, escape. They're not separate chapters. They are intertwined and braided of what parts of my mother, of who she is, She is still the woman who can spot a handsome young man across a room and ignite. She is the woman who can sit with her grandson and melt, and the woman who can still drink a room into oblivion. Because the stories in her chest are too loud to bear sober. So, as her daughter, I am watching, I am holding, running, returning. My own body is humming with blood memory. I had never asked for this love, but it is a love that I simply cannot put down. What strikes me most about these days is her childlikeness. My mother, who I said is in her 80s, she's 83, like I said, turning 84 very shortly, with dementia. She still lights up when a handsome young man goes by. Her eyes light up like Christmas morning, like there is still hope, like desire itself is ageless. You know, often these days, repetitively, she'll tug at my arm or say something giddy, and she'll say, "Look at him. Isn't he beautiful?" Her eyes sparkling like a teenager's. She keeps telling this story over and over again, and it's a story I have not heard before now. But she says, "I want love one more time in my lifetime. I want to be romanced." And she means it. She's not joking. She's not confused. She's still alive in that way. She's turned on by the world. She's still seeking love and romance. And she has no filter, never did. And that was both one of her gifts and not so much. And she would say things that most people would never dare to say. She would behave in ways that were too much, too raw, too inappropriate, but also very true to herself. It would be easy to dismiss this as an allusion to say, oh, she doesn't understand her age anymore. She's lost track of time. But I think she's actually touching on something that's truer than the categories that we invent about aging. Because desire doesn't obey calendars. And eros doesn't check your ID even when the skin softens, even when the body betrays itself, when the wrinkles appear, when the ache doesn't retire. And yet, how much shame do we place on aging bodies that still want? The way that society polices who gets to feel sexy, who gets to long, who gets to imagine being touched or kissed or ravaged. We say that desire is for the young. We pretend old age is a quiet retreat. But I'm telling you, sitting next to my mother, listening to her point out the men that she finds handsome and sexy and seeing her light up and glow and act coy and demure, I'm seeing that desire is the last ember to go out. Oh, and maybe it's not supposed to go out. Maybe it's the thing that keeps the body tethered to this life, even as memory dissolves. When she was younger, she would often shut herself down. She followed a script of shame. I don't want too much, to be greedy, to be selfish. And now, stripped of inhibition by her illness, by dementia, she is pure desire. She is pure eros. She acts purely from her purity, her authenticity. Hungry, childlike, innocent, raging, all of it, traumatized. Because I realize we are all going to face this. And we can either deny our desires until they wither, or we can reach, or we're going to reach old age with them still burning, maybe confused And maybe they're inconvenient and maybe they're embarrassing, but they are also incredibly radiant. There's been the other side of this in spending time with my mother, that is, being in Berlin and taking this trek with her, knowing my own egoic places of my needing to calm my own nervous system, to bring her desires and wishes to light. And I've been faced with the reality, the not so romantic human, the not so romantic human side, the messy, the anger. So in my one of my grief diaries, I wrote, last week, my mother landed herself in the hospital, and part of me felt relief. Part of me felt rage. Part of me felt flushed, icky, exposed. The psychiatrist on the phone took a hard tone and told me that I needed to pick her up, that I had no choice, that she was my responsibility. And I was left with no direction and no support. And I want to put forth to you just the thought how disposable we can all be in the system when we play by the rules, when we maintain ourselves hard, fast, and steadfast to the system. And I had felt in my body like 1,000 of my father's eyes, men in suits, bureaucracy, a system that says, you are failing. You should know better. I so wanted this to be a vacation for her and with her. Have some magic in Europe, some fairy tale ending, but instead, I was screaming at her on the floor of a restaurant while she refused to leave, and then watching her down 2 more glasses of wine in fury. I felt like a child again, complicit in her shame, and the one who has to hold it, carry it, and clean it up. And now back in Germany, in the place that she had desired to come to more than anything, the place that she longed for the longest time. She was here. She is here. But Germany, of course, did not wait for her. Germany didn't open its arms. And Germany is full of its own ghosts and bureaucracy and cold walls. So for me, running from one office to another, clutching papers, standing in line, unsure of what I am supposed to do next, my own nervous system has been humming in panic, in anger, in sadness, deep sadness, and also an incredible love. I've had this exhaustion, but also a softening. Seeing my mother in ways, as I said earlier, that I had never experienced before. I had, in essence, to make a choice, and my father's passing, bringing its own deep, deep grief, and coming to terms with his passing and our relationship. In being here with my mother, I have missed his unveiling of the stone, which is in the Jewish faith. I did not go. I could not go. The loyalty that I have to my mother, even in her worst moments, has always bound me. This too is eros. It's grief. It's in the body. We can hold both love and hate at the same time. We can want closeness and pray for distance. We can long for our mothers and also want them gone. There's no saint here. I'm not a good daughter in these moments. I'm not graceful. I have left her on the floor. I've yelled at her. I've wished that I could take it all back. And then I've also cradled her, kissed her, held her hand, and whispered, I love you, which is something that I have done very rarely in my life. Because intimacy can be hard. And it's not just candlelight and orgasms and tantric breathing. It's the willingness to face the truth of our relationships, that they're messy, that they don't feel good in our bodies, and that our bodies will betray us, that our desires often embarrass us, and our rage burns holes in all of us. And still there is love. So I'm not proud of these moments. Um, and the hatred that I had felt from my mother, particularly in feeling very lost, has been bone deep. I had actually heard, which was a foreign voice to me, but I heard a voice, a very, very dark one, in a really difficult moment with my mother that was almost cartoonish, but it was definitely a dark shadow, felt very villainous. And the voice, after my mother had been brought to the hospital, I just thought, it's over. I had a moment of freedom, and it scared me. I recoiled from it. I was horrified by it. But here's the thing, that voice is also me. Loving yourself isn't bubble baths and affirmations. Loving yourself is the radical act of sitting with the ugliest part of you, the ugliest voices inside you, and saying, yes, you are a part of me. I see you. I accept you. I love even you. I will not abandon you. This is intimacy with yourself. This is also eros, because eros isn't only soft caresses and beauty. Eros is the full charge of life, the shadows, and what I call and love to reference, which is coyote ugly. It is the willingness to let it all exist inside of you without amputating pieces of yourself. And that's why when I say that skin and soul isn't just meant to be glossy skin and pretty soul. I mean, the whole animal, the stench of diapers in a hotel bathroom, the ache of pussy that wants release while grief and rage are still in the room. The way your chest burns with panic while your mother calls out for a man who isn't there. The way you can want someone gone and want them close in the same breath. This is intimacy. This is truth. And it can be terrifying, but it's also very liberating. Yeah. So here I am. I'm in Berlin. My mother, alive and declining. Me, alive and absolutely resisting. Both of us are still full of desire. I see in her what I fear in myself: loneliness, regret, addiction, tragedy. I also see the beautiful things that I admire: the fire, the magic, the beauty, her life force. But this isn't about redemption or about forgiveness or a clean ending. It's just about being human. So let me ask you, what are your current regrets? And what are you avoiding? Mm. Where are you shaming yourself into smallness? And where are you denying the ache that still burns inside of you? And could you, even just for today, desire be innocent? Even if the world tells you it's too late, it's too much, it's too inappropriate. Can you hold that fire within you? This is my grief diary. This is my eros diary. This is my personal life. And maybe it's part of yours as well. Because the truth is, desire outlives the body. And eros doesn't retire. And your skin and soul will always tell the truth if you dare to listen. I'm going to leave you with this today. There are no clean endings. Redemption can also just be a fairy tale, because there are no perfect bow ties, and there is just the beautiful, incredible, magnificent mess of being alive. And that, my loves, is enough. So thank you for joining me today and sharing this part of my life with me. Good night. Thank you for listening to Skin and Soul with me, Gwenm. Join me Fridays at 10 a.m. PST on Transformation Talk Radio. Catch the podcast anytime on your favorite platforms. You can follow me on Instagram @Luvology. Ready to take the next step? Book a compatibility call with me at gwenmcarsley.com.